Coming up on this evening's Satellite Showtime, a West Indies resident talks about a rising star in Japan. You'll find out what makes a receiver tick, and also you'll learn how to assemble a dish and mount. Stay tuned. Good evening. Welcome to Satellite Showtime. I'm Pat Olson. Satellite Showtime is brought to you by our fine corporate sponsors, including Luxor North America and Cultronics Incorporated. Here's an industry news update. Two pro-satellite industry bills in Congress tonight have upward of 30 co-sponsors apiece. Those bills are H.R. 1769 and H.R. 1840. Space still strongly encourages you to write to your U.S. representative asking him or her to support these bills. Chuck Hewitt of Space.
Individual visits would be number one. A personal handwritten letter has tremendous impact. If one congressman gets 10 handwritten letters on the same subject, he takes note. It has a tremendous impact. It has more impact than 1,000 form letters.
A proposal on zoning right now is in the hands of the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC. The FCC this fall is expected to adopt the proposed rule. It calls for preemption of local zoning ordinances in cases where the zoning is overly restrictive. And here's a couple of news items from STV magazine. STV editor Chris Schultheis is becoming a spokesperson for the industry. He's recently appeared on radio KING in Seattle and WJR in Detroit. The latter broadcast was simulcast with the satellite talk show FM America on Comstar D4. And some more about the magazine. The June issue of Atlantic Monthly features a 9-page article on STV and its involvement in the home satellite industry. Chris Schulteis is available as a spokesperson, so if you want to contact him, you can contact him in care of STV in Shelby, North Carolina. We appreciate your answers to our questions of the week, and we have a brand new question this week. It's either for you dealers or you consumers out there. It is, if you are a dealer, what do you say that usually gets a person to go ahead and decide, yes, I'm going to buy that home satellite system? Or if you're a consumer, what did your dealer say to you that pushed you to go ahead and buy a home satellite system? Here are the numbers you can call to answer our question of the week. 608-647-4246 or 608-647-8902. We're waiting for your call right now. We are just looking for the line to light up. And to let you know, this question is either for you dealers or you consumers out there. And I see our first call.
Okay, we have customers come in. We're a dealer, and I believe and I feel that what gives us a sell or the edge over our competition is we offer have to get over or convey to them the service, the dependability of the units, and well, primarily the service and dependability and quality of units is what I find most of our customers are looking for.
How hard is it to do that?
It takes time. I don't find it as hard as I find most customers we sell. I spend often as much as 30 minutes or sometimes an hour and maybe as many as a couple of visits with a customer before they actually buy. So I wouldn't say it's hard as much as it's time consuming. You have to take your time and relate to them.
Thank you for your call. And we have another call coming in.
When the dealer tells me I can receive over 100 channels to watch on the satellite, and also all the available radio stations that are on the satellite, that really impresses me. The stereo quality of the receivers these days is just fantastic. That's what made me want to buy one.
Thank you so much for your call. Yes, we have a question for you this week. It's our question of the week. And no doubt some of you have a question for us, and that is, what is Mike Gustafson going to talk about tonight? Well, you'll find that out when Satellite Showtime continues.
Luxor, space-age technology at an affordable price. Satellite receivers, antenna actuators, remote controls, and auxiliary sensors, all by Luxor. Here's a totally integrated satellite television reception system. The Luxor 9550 remote controlled satellite receiver. 24 channels selected, fine-tuned, programmed for automatic recall. 4 different audio systems, built-in RF modulator, automatic polarization, 2-speed scan, video inversion control, AFC defeat, and Dolby noise reduction and more. The Luxor 9534 antenna actuator, automatic satellite selection by remote control, all at the touch of a button, remarkable ease and accuracy. And the Luxor Mark II, a high-performance block satellite television receiver system, several sets, each having their own independent channel selection at the same time from a single antenna. That's the Mark II. Just a few of the high-performance, technically advanced satellite products from Luxor.
For a limited time only, you can receive Channel Guide for a special reduced rate. For just $9, you will receive 8 weeks of Channel Guide, a month of Galaxy One magazine, and the all-new 1985 Whole Earth Station catalog. That's a $20 value for just $9. Enclose check and address, and you'll start receiving the original grid format for satellite TV. Due to this low price, no phone orders may be taken. Write today. Channel Guide, Department 808A, P.O. Box 1633, Englewood, Colorado, 80150. Do it today.
Welcome back to Satellite Showtime. You're watching our program tonight on a home satellite Earth station, but how much do you really know about that system? Well, if you've been watching Mike Gustafson on our program for the past couple of months, you know more than you did before. Mike is the West Coast editor and technical editor for STV magazine. And he has talked about how the satellites work and how home satellite Earth stations work. Last week, Mike talked about low-noise amplifiers, and now let's see what he has in store for this week.
Hello again, and if you've been following us along here the last few weeks, we are now going to discuss the last item in the chain that makes up your home satellite reception system. We started out with the uplink, traveled to the satellite, through the antennas, feeds, low-noise amplifiers, and this week we're going to describe the receiver. The receiver is the item that you see the most, that you place the most value in. Except for the convenience of operation, the receiver is probably the least important item in the chain as far as producing a quality audio and video signals for you. Primarily, you could have a receiver that's simple, little black box, and produces excellent quality results. But it would not be user-friendly. It would not be simple to operate. So what we're really looking at today in the TVRO industry are receivers which have the ability to make your life easier. So let's go to our little board here and talk about receivers for a while. This drawing represents sort of a block diagram of our system in general. We have the reflector, the feed, and LNA to a down converter. The down converter is always out at the antenna. It's mounted underneath in the back, or if it's an L and B or C, it's up at the focal point. But the first down conversion is typically out at the antenna. We derive our information, whatever the IF is, 950 to 1450, 900 to 1400, and we convey that indoors to the indoor control unit or receiver. From there, of course, we drive into our TV set, our big screen video, our color monitors, or whatever it is that you happen to use. So this is the block diagram of the typical system. Now we're going to get into a little more detail. First, let's talk about the down converters that occur out at the antenna. There are three basic kinds. There's a single conversion, dual conversion, and block. So let's start here with single conversion. Single conversion means just that. We take the 3.7 to 4.2 gigahertz satellite band, and in one step, we drop it down to the intermediate IF that we're going to use in our receiver. In this case, we have an image reject mixer, a voltage-tuned oscillator, VTO, voltage-tuned oscillator. We provide the tuning voltage to select our channel, and we down-convert a channel at a time, the 3.742, all 24 channels, down to a 70 megahertz IF. The dual conversion is just that. There are two down converters in one box. Once again, 3.742 in, our mixer, a voltage-tuned oscillator, some filtering to get rid of some unwanted mixed products from this mixer, another mixer, this time with a fixed tuned oscillator. This oscillator does not tune, it doesn't move, it stays right on frequency, and we down convert to 70 megahertz. Now this 70 megahertz is not inviolate. That is, we could have an IF of 130 megahertz, we could have an IF of 600 megahertz. It would all be the same. It's a dual conversion, two steps down, and we're tuning the first stepper right here, if you will, the first down converter. The last down converter we're going to talk about, and the one which seems to be in about 90% of the systems out there today, is the block converter. Now this can be a low noise block converter that is built into the low noise amplifier, or it can be a separate package attached to a low noise amplifier. 3.742, a mixer, and this time we have a fixed tune ultra stable oscillator. Usually they're dielectrically resonated oscillators, DROs. You've heard that, I'm sure. This does not tune, it stays there, but it's ultra stable. It just does not drift. Unlike these two oscillators, they would drift. The DRO does not drift at all, or if it does, it's so small that you'll never notice it. This gives us an IF, it's a single conversion as you can see, an IF in this case of 950 to 1450. You can also have an IF of 900 to 1400, or an IF of 430 to 930. Many different IFs all work with the same scheme, and except for cable losses, it doesn't matter which method you use. Now let's talk about cable losses just for a second before I move on with the receiver. Clearly, if we have an RG59 cable and we're pumping 70 megahertz down it, the losses are very small. We could run, say, 500 feet with no real problem with loss factors at 70 megahertz. But in a case here where we have a 950 to 1450, that's 1.45 gigahertz, very high frequency. RG59 can no longer convey that IF 500 feet. So we have to limit the cable length, if we're using, as an example, RG59, to somewhere around 100 to 150 feet before we go to a much better quality cable, RG6, RG11, as an example. If you use the better quality cables, you could run up to 300 to 400 feet. But typically, you're going to need line amplifiers if you're trying to run the high IF frequencies long distances. But for most home systems, 250 feet and less, I think you can get away with the standard cables that come with it. But just be sensitive to this cable loss, and the way you can determine if that's a problem is if you lose the top 4 or 5 channels, channels 19 through 24, this is caused by cable tilt, and that's the loss factor as you increase in frequency, and you need to get a line amplifier back in the line a ways, or you need a better quality cable with lower losses. Okay, enough on that. Let's get on with our receivers. Now, we have on this side of the drawing, we have a second down conversion. Now, if we're talking about block systems, this is built into the receiver. If we're talking about a single conversion or dual conversion, then we would come in directly here at our IF input. So if we're talking about blocks, here's our second conversion. Inside, we have a voltage-tuned oscillator that's controlled by the receiver, the IF of 950 to 1450, and our output is whatever the IF is necessary. Could be 70 megahertz, could be 130 megahertz, could be just about anything. Okay, so that's inside the receiver. Now this is a typical receiver that is in use probably 99% of the time. We have on the input an IF filter. Now this is where people talk about what's the bandwidth of the receiver. Well, this is the bandwidth determiner. It can be 20 megahertz wide, it can be 30 megahertz wide, be 25 megahertz, whatever you set it to be, or purchase it actually. This is the IF filter. This sets the bandwidth of your receiver. The purpose of this filter is twofold. A, it is to reduce the noise, and B, it's to contain and reject any unwanted other signals. So it reduces the noise we don't want to use, and it contains our RF information. Keeps it in one location, if you will. The output of the filter goes to the video demodulator. It is here where we actually subtract the video and audio information from the RF. Up to this point, it's still an RF carrier with the video and audio superimposed on it. In the video demod, we actually demodulate the top 10 megahertz of all our information. We split off at this point. Part goes to the audio demod, and the rest continues video. Let's continue the video line. We go into a low-pass filter, which rolls off all the frequencies above about 5 megahertz. Just gets rid of noise. We de-emphasize it. Now, what's that all about? When the signal is uplinked to the satellite, the uplink operators do what is called pre-emphasize the video information. And what this does is if they pre-emphasize it and then we de-emphasize it, we have an increase in our signal-noise ratio. We reduce the noise using this process. So this is the de-emphasis that cancels the pre-emphasis that the uplink engineers put on it. Output of that goes to a clamp. What's a clamp? In order for us to operate in the bands with the telephone company repeaters, which we do, we share them with Ma Bell, if you will, we have to dither our signal back and forth very slowly at about a 30 hertz rate. This clamp removes that dithering signal, if you will. If we didn't have a clamp, the picture would flicker all the time at a very slow rate. So we clamp that out so that it's now stable, go into a video amplifier, which gets us 1 volt peak to peak, and a video output. Okay, back to this point, go into an audio demod, and we either have stereo output or mono output on out to our stereo outputs. And we have a modulator which takes the video and the audio and puts it up on VHF channel 3. Our channel selection hopefully is by a frequency synthesizer. A frequency synthesizer is nothing more than a device that is referenced to a very stable source and is able to select the channels and tell this VTO where to go. Actually, the synthesizer generates its own VTO, but in any event, we'll talk about it this way, such that there's no drift. The frequency synthesizer, because reference to a crystal, like your CB radio crystal, if you will, does not drift, so we have no channel drift problems. It is possible, and with block systems, very, very easily done, where you do not use a synthesizer and you achieve the same goal of stability by using just a voltage-tuned oscillator and storage of the channel selection. So that's a typical receiver. Now let's take a look at a typical receiver. This is the Drake ESR 424 block down conversion receiver. This is the block down converter. You see it has one IF input, or output rather. The RF 3742 goes in. No tuning voltages. It's a block DRO system. Has a little remote control. And you can see this has, I think, typical of a lot of the receivers out there today. It tells you the channel number by LED, signal strength and a light bar graph, and the audio frequencies that you can tune into it, and which polarization you're turned to. Now, let's look at this color monitor for a second. I'll change channels. This is transponder 7 of SATCOM 3. There's transponder 3. There's transponder 1. Notice it's stepping in odd channels. Now to change polarization, we go down one more time. Transponder 24 and 22. And you all, I'm sure, recognize the color bars on 22. But this is a typical block down conversion receiver with its remote control and some of the capability. This is a relatively low-cost unit. Now, if we do not have a lot of the synthesized systems, we can do what is called microprocessor controlled. The value here is that we can store in memory the program information for audio and video, antenna drive information, and polarization information. So the microprocessors really are coming on very fast these days with all of the high-end receivers, and in fact some of the low-end receivers too have microprocessors in them. So you should probably get used to that. Now, just for fun, and we're kind of wrapping this up, I collected as many of the remote controls laying around this house as I could find. We have a DX, if these will stand up, they won't. The DX remote control, NORSAT remote control, satellite transmission systems, a lot of knobs, a lot of buttons, but a good little unit, remote control. These are all remote controls, infrared remote controls for receivers. A ViewStar, Gillespie and Associates, and another DX. But any more today in any receiver, you've got to have a remote control. And the difference between, say, a simple remote control which has 5 buttons and something like this is the complexity of the unit. But in the case of the ViewStar, it has an awful lot of features that are accessible and it looks like a lot of buttons, but it's very simple to operate. This is very simple to operate, but it has very few features that you can use actually. But it's still a good little receiver. So I think that just about wraps us up this time. Thanks for viewing, and once again, if you have any questions or critiques of this session, Mike Gustafson's my name. Address is Post Office Box 20700, San Jose, California, zip code 95160. Until next time, take care.
Next week, Mike will talk about power drives, and you'll see one in action. Shelburne Films of Reedsville, Ohio produces films about the home satellite industry. And if you've been watching our Shelburne Film segments on installing satellite antennas, you've learned about finding the Clark belt, about terrestrial interference, and how to set the pole. This week you'll learn how to assemble the dish and mount.
Even though different systems may go together quite differently, most manufacturers have made this part of the job very easy by publishing detailed instructions. There's only one rule the installer must remember. Read.
I would read the instructions, the manufacturer's instructions initially before you start anything. The most common problem I've seen is I'll go to a site and the focal length will be incorrectly set or it won't be bore-sighted correctly. And basically, it just wasn't set to what the manufacturer has stated in the instructions.
Reading the instructions will get you through the assembly stage just fine. Use all the bolts and hardware supplied. Assemble your dish on a flat surface, especially sectionalized solid dishes.
Make sure when you put your panels together that everything's nice and flush and true. You don't want to get anything off. The best that you can put that together is the best quality you're going to get. Try and put the whole dish together without tightening anything up on it. And then just start off at the bottom and go around with it all the way to back to the center of the dish. And then usually you've pretty well got it where it's supposed to be.
Mesh dishes can be assembled face up. This helps avoid crooked assembly caused by uneven ground. What we are striving for here is something called surface accuracy. Mark Long tells us just what that is.
In order to obtain the maximum performance from any satellite dish,
it is necessary that the surface precisely conform to the parabolic curve selected by the antenna engineer who designed the system. Any noticeable bumps or waves in the surface can lessen the amount of signal arriving at the focal point of the antenna. You can tell whether an antenna has the necessary accuracy by running your hand along the surface and feeling for any noticeable bumps or waves. A visual inspection will also tell you a lot about whether the screen has been attached properly. Many mesh antennas use a series of clips in order to hold the mesh onto the frame of the antenna. These clips must be attached to the frame at regular intervals in such a way that there are no noticeable bumps or waves in the surface accuracy. Care taken by the installer when putting the mesh onto the frame will be rewarded with the best reception possible. Many solid metal and fiberglass antennas are constructed from a series of petals which fit together to make the dish. The installer should take care that there is little variation from petal to petal. Variations of as little as 1/4 of an inch can make the difference between a good picture and one that has noise in it. Another way to check the surface accuracy of an antenna like this is to sight across its rim from one edge to the other, like this. The two edges should line up parallel to each other. If it doesn't, you may have to loosen some of the bolts and retighten them in a way that reconforms the antenna shape.
Tighten all bolts evenly. Then measure the diameter at several points to check the surface accuracy. Next, assemble the mount itself and place it in position on the pole.
Next week, the Shelburne Film segment will show you how to set the dish up on the mount. Coming up on this evening's Satellite Showtime, a new contributor to our show from the West Indies talks about a rising star in Japan. Stay tuned.
Want to know more about satellite TV? Then go to the source for product reviews and how-tos. We're on the road and out in space, and sometimes in very cold places, with features and technical reports. It's all in satellite TV. That's only $19.95 for 12 big issues of STV magazine. Call now, 1-800-438-2020, and get this LCD calendar clock free with your subscription. That's 12 big issues of STV magazine and the clock for only $19.95. The number again is 1-800-438-2020. 1-800-438-2020. Call now.
Welcome back to Satellite Showtime. Remember, you can still call us with your answer to our question of the week, and that question is, if you're a dealer, what do you say that usually gets a person to go ahead and make the decision to buy a home satellite system? What is it that you say? And if you're a consumer, what did your dealer say to you that made you go ahead and buy a home satellite system? Our phone numbers are 608-647-4246 and 608-647-8902. And already I see the phone lighting up. Good evening, Satellite Showtime.
Well, he assured me that there would always be plenty of programming on, even if some of them did scramble, and that even though some of them would scramble, that it eventually would be offered at a reasonable rate.
Thank you for your call. We have a new member of our Satellite Showtime team. He is Bob Cooper, editor of Coop's Satellite Digest. He puts his segments together in the West Indies, and we're happy to have Bob as a new member of our show.
Dr. Yoshihiro Kanishi, one of the best known, perhaps the most respected microwave circuit engineer in the world today. Well, Dr. Kanishi is president of Uniden Satellite Technology. But his fame came nearly a decade ago, some 10 years or more, when he created the very first low-cost, mass-production-capable microwave video satellite receiver. Recently, Dr. Kanishi and his family traveled from their home in the suburbs of Tokyo to visit with me at the CSD testing laboratory in the Turks and Caicos Islands here in the Caribbean.
Just about horizontal.
I see.
And that's where the elevation setting problem comes in.
Oh, yes, I know. I understand.
Well, Dr. Kanishi with Marshall Foils is inspecting a Uniden 10-foot 7-inch screen mesh satellite antenna, which had been shipped to our test lab for review and evaluation. We found several areas relating to the integrity of the dish and its method of assembly, which we felt could be improved.
Yeah, this is moving.
This also.
Yeah, this is moving a little bit.
A little bit.
But you can see it.
Okay, quite a different. Quite a different between here and here.
Yeah, and between here, here, and there is a big difference.
I understand now.
Yeah.
I think this portion, and this portion.
Yeah.
Too weak.
Too weak.
Yeah.
Uniden as a corporation has taken the home satellite industry virtually by storm. In the month of May, according to company officials, for example, the firm shipped more than 20,000 satellite TVRO receivers to its distributors. June was an even larger month. Well, that says that nearly 50% of all TVRO receivers shipped in those 2 months originated at Uniden. Just 1 year ago, Uniden was introducing their first satellite receivers to TVRO, and it's been quite a year for Uniden.
Throughout the United States, throughout the world, you are best known, I think, for something called the Kanishi receiver. It was a breakthrough in microwave technology many years ago, and it created the basis for much of what we now do. Talk to me about the development of the planar circuits and why you conceived such a thing.
Okay. In the past, such receivers like KU band was used for the communications only. And at that time, satellite broadcasting is also should be used in the KU band. To make more widely used such receivers is very much important to achieving the satellite broadcasting. So it is important thing is how to make low cost such receivers.
When Dr. Kanishi first concentrated on designing a low-cost satellite video receiver, a typical receiver, then in production, cost $10,000 American and up. Well, he wanted to create a technique where the total receiver cost would be lowered to less than $100.
I combined both good points. It makes the planar circuit mounted waveguide. And the planar circuit mounted waveguide is the, has the constructions that the planar circuit is made by the metal sheet where the several patterns which make functions to bandpass filters or combining circuit so on. And such a metal sheet is inserted middle of the waveguide. That is the circuit. So the planar circuit is made by mass productions, and it makes maybe a low cost. This was the original approach for me.
Well, Dr. Kanishi's approach was to use sheets of aluminum, the metal aluminum, as a base material and to fashion tiny circuits out of the aluminum sheet. By creating just the right pattern, cutting or die-cutting the aluminum sheet in strange-looking patterns, he was able to create a full down-converter receiver system which inserted or mounted inside of the feed's waveguide. Think of it this way. Inside of a polarization rotation scalar feed, you have a small metal rod or a probe that moves to select between vertical and horizontal. That probe is actually part of a circuit. Now, what Dr. Kanishi did was to use similar metal parts which are also mounted inside the feed horn or the waveguide. And these metal parts actually form the circuit for the first portion, the down conversion portion of the receiver. But that was 10 years ago, a subject we shall return to next week. Today's attention is focused on the current lineup of Konishi receivers for C-band or today's present DBS band. Dr. Konishi explains some of his concerns in designing a modern receiver for low-threshold performance.
I have the two important attentions when we designed the unit receivers. The one important attention is for the limiters. And especially our effort is paid to make the good limiting functions whenever amplitude modulations is deep. You know, for example, usually limiting functions is examined by using 30% amplitude modulated signals. And that 30% amplitude modulations is figured out how to small amplitude. It meant by the limiting functions. But the important thing is that not 30% amplitude modulation should not be used. Not only such a 30% amplitude modulation, but also almost 100% or 90% amplitude modulations is used to examine how the limiting function is. Because, for example, let's consider the threshold levels. In that case, threshold levels, the noise is almost 100% modulations. So in such situations, limiting function should be very effectively worked. Otherwise, you know, in a small noise, in other words, more than threshold levels, amplitude modulated noise is very small. So, but in that case, signal to noise ratio is better than that, better than the threshold levels. Important thing is how to get the good quality pictures in the case of the threshold levels. So this is one point of my important attentions.
Well, circuit designers will recognize that Dr. Konishi believes receiver limiting stages must be designed to function best when the threshold level is quite low, when the signal levels are quite low. And that means when the noise portion of the signal is high in relation to the desired signal itself. Well, making limiters work for you by making them more responsive to noise or more able to reject noise is a key to weak signal performance in all of Dr. Konishi's designs. Next week, we will continue our visit with Dr. Konishi and focus on the growing interest in Japan of American C-band DBS. This is Bob Cooper, and good evening now from the studios of West Indies Video in the Turks and Caicos Islands.
Thank you, Bob. We'll see you again next week. There's a home fishing video being produced right now by the people who brought us Scotch tape. The people from the New Tech Times in Madison, Wisconsin produced this tape about that tape, and they sent Gary Probst fishing.
It's a hot, lazy afternoon in southern Missouri. Riding in a boat on Table Rock Lake is about as far from high-tech as you can be. But there's a television crew here in the middle of the Ozarks producing a new high-tech product for people who love to fish.
Largemouth bass, like all predators, instinctively identify vulnerable prey.
Charlie Farmer is an outdoors author and the host of a new video called Structure Fishing for Bass. It's a production of Leisure Time Products, a division of the giant tape company 3M. Leisure Time is building a sportsman's library of half-inch videotape for use on home VCRs.
From some of the most knowledgeable outdoorsmen in America come information and concepts that enable you to build on your existing skills and become more successful in your outdoor sport.
It takes weeks, even months, to prepare a videotape. Crews go underwater to show how fish react to lures. The tapes are designed to entertain and to give the viewer a lot of information.
To give you a little recap on what we did today, you take yourself a spinnerbait, get a handful of spinnerbaits.
What we're trying to do is show people how to become more proficient at their sport. whether it's fly fishing, bass fishing, dog training, or deer hunting, or whatever it is. We've been publishing these magazines on fishing for a long time, and we've always been frustrated that certain things we just can't show. Tying a knot, or an elaborate cast that has a lot of visual things, or just the subtle little features of proper lure manipulation, or whatever it is like that. And the video medium allows us to go out there and show the person exactly how to do something.
Now you should present the fly up and across stream, like this.
But there's one potential stumbling block for 3M, the price tag. Tapes sell for between $50 and $80. The people who produce the tapes know that's a lot of money, but they're hoping that the people who buy expensive bass boats and spend $2 billion per year in fishing tackle will also buy videotapes, or at least rent them.
Fishing is the #1 sport in the United States. There are about 60 million fishermen. No other sport has the numbers of people that actively participate in fishing. So we feel we have an audience of about 60 million. So it's a huge, huge audience.
The people at 3M believe they've just touched the surface of a new method of using videotape. They may expand their library to include instructional golf and tennis tapes. Potential topics are as numerous as trophy bass in Table Rock Lake.
The folks at 3M have entered a new market with their hunting and fishing videos, a market made possible with the widespread use of home VCRs, which make watching your favorite movie or home video more convenient. Coming up on Satellite Showtime, the Calltronics Video Newsletter with Joe Kelch.
The Luxor Mark II, a new generation of electronic excellence. The Mark II is a block satellite receiver system. It offers independent channel selection for multiple TV sets from a single antenna. In the home, for neighbors to share, in hotels, apartment, offices, and for licensed SMA TV redistribution to the entire community. The Mark II by Luxor does it all. You receive the best signal, the highest possible performance with Dolby high-fidelity sound. Other features include the individually programmed audio, AFC automatic fine-tuning controls, all on the 24 programmable channels. An infrared handheld remote will give complete control over the channel selection on any satellite. It's all so easy with Luxor Mark II. See it and then enjoy it. The Mark II does it all.
Welcome to the world of satellite TV opportunities, the marketing techniques magazine for satellite television that reviews the latest technology and introduces you to people you should know.
Satellite TV Opportunities is the marketing techniques magazine for satellite TV dealers. Our single purpose is to help dealers increase their sales and their profits through improved marketing techniques.
Call today for your subscription to success, 1-800-922-2812, Satellite TV Opportunities Magazine.
Satellite TV Preview is the best thing next to your satellite dish. With all those programs now at your fingertips, you don't want to miss a thing. Satellite Preview lists over 100 transponders in an easy-to-read schedule grid. It has the daily list of movies, special, and sports, plus a list of sports by event. Save over $7 by calling in your subscription today. Get 52 issues of Preview for only $39.95. Call 1-800-826-0735. Dealers, we also have a special for you. Call the same toll-free number.
Good evening and welcome to Calltronics Video Newsletter. I'd like to take time out at the beginning of this segment to talk about the people at SES, the distributorship. We're proud of all of our distributors and we look at some of the literature that they send out. In this particular case, we've seen their newsletter and we especially like the tips from SES in Nashville in this most recent issue. Here's some of the ideas they have, and they're good. They're old-fashioned, homey, direct, good-selling ideas, the kind that we all should remember. They say attitude is vital, and isn't that the truth? Don't let loss of a sale throw you off. Keep positive. It's difficult at times, but if you keep positive, you won't let the alternative happen, which is a continuing loss of sales. They have a reference here of somebody coming in the store in the morning and they lose the sale, or they lose it on the phone and they get down. And the next time somebody's on the phone or they meet them in person, they're down. And the people pick it up because a majority of the people that come into your store are negative. They're going to have to spend money. They don't like that. You have to make them positive with your own positive attitude. Joe and Millie Fontenot, who were founders of the SCS system, were back in the early days, as I'll quote this now, systems were $8,000 each. $8,000 each. As a retailer, Millie sold $500,000 worth in the first year, and she did it over the phone primarily. Now that's salesmanship. How do you get this positive attitude? Well, she says eliminate those words called can't, if, and best of all, eliminate impossible. There's no such word. Joe says when everything else fails, try work. Plan your work, he says, and work your plan. Take 100 young people, says Joe, at age 25, and follow them through their lives until they're 65 years of age. What do you find? One ends up rich, which is nice, but what about the others? 4 are financially secure. 3 of them are still working at age 65, not because they have to earn their bread, because they like to. There's an awful large group left here. 29 are dead, 65 years old, and they didn't quite make that level. But what about the balance? They're just simply dead broke. They cannot write a check after 40 years and have $600 covered by their bank. Even $600, they haven't been able to save that much. This tells us that there's a tough old road out there, and most of the reason is lack of positive attitude. There's a lot of other things that they have in the newsletter. Perhaps we'll talk about them the next show, but I like this sort of newsletter, and more power to them, and thank you for being good distributors of Qualtronics product, SCS people. A reminder, Reno Northwest Satellite Conference coming up very soon now, August 2nd through the 4th. KTI will be there with our booths 603 and 605, and outside 19 and 20. That's at Reno, coming up the 2nd through the 4th. The Consumer Electronics Convention and Trade Show 85 is coming up in Toronto at the Convention Center there, a little later in August, the 18th through the 20th. So, reminder for you people that are heading in that direction. Also, reminder for you out there who are interested, dealers and distributors. We'd love to have you call. We welcome your calls tonight. Call now, call after the show. Somebody will be here on our sales staff to take those calls. The number is 1-800-826-CALL, K-A-U-L. And for people in Wisconsin, 800-826-NOVA, N-O-V-A. Repeating, call 800-826-CALL, K-A-U-L. And here in Wisconsin, 800-826-NOVA, N-O-V-A. Now we'd like to introduce John Call, president of Qualtronics, with this message.
Thanks, Joe. I'd like to take just a couple of minutes to discuss a couple of new antennas that we'll be bringing to the Nashville show. And that would be the Trans 6 antenna, which will be an aluminum antenna, 9-rib design, UPS shippable. We will have it available for you to see at the show. We'll be shipping at that time. We also will be bringing to the show a 9-foot antenna, 12-rib design, and this antenna will be both in aluminum and steel. So if you need to compete with the less expensive steel antennas, we will have that in our arsenal for you to compete with. We've got the test reports back on the 9-foot antenna, and quite pleased with the results. At 4.2 gig, the gain is 39.3, no problem for the 2-degree spacing, and we will have the 6-foot antenna tested by that time, and we feel with the 6, 9, and 10, we'll give you a full line of antennas for this fall selling season. So look forward to seeing you at the show, and come on by and talk to our salesman. Thanks you much.
The Trans 9 Qualtronics. This beautifully designed and crafted transparent antenna is poised to set the industry on its ear. With the latest in antenna technology, the Trans 9 has strength, accuracy, and beauty at a price you believe, until you experience the quality and savings yourself. Baked acrylic, thermoset finish, super strength hub and Qualtronics means quality, and the Trans 9 lives up to the Qualtronics tradition.
The Trans 10 by Qualtronics, already a national leader in its first year because of quality, performance, and strength, all at a highly competitive price. Compare, and you'll see why it's a leader. Easy to look at, low luster appeal black finish and baked acrylic thermoset, parabolically formed hub, a solid 14.5-inch diameter in prime steel, ribs of superior strength tubular 16-gauge steel encased in polytrans vinyl. A patented design assures maximum reflector signal. UPS shippable anywhere in this country. The Trans 10 by Qualtronics, quality and beauty at a competitive price. Tested and approved to withstand wind velocities up to 90 miles per hour. Yes, tested and approved for 2-degree spacing by the McDonnell Douglas Corporation as well. The Trans 10, the antenna for every season.
As you all well know, Qualtronics' home office is located in Wisconsin. Wisconsin's known for some nasty weather in the fall, winter, and spring time of the year. And especially in the fall and winter, a lot of times this rainy weather will freeze or get inside the jack shaft itself and freeze inside of the actuator. And that's when problems become very serious. To prevent this from happening, we've got a weather boot available to you dealers and distributors to take care of that problem. This boot has a vent at the front and also one at the bottom. Let me show you one that is not installed yet. Here's the vent at the top and the vent at the bottom. You merely slide the unit, the weather boot, over the jack shaft. This part goes over the external tube and the front piece over the internal tube. And as the actuator extends, the preformed pleats unfold. And as it contracts, it goes back to its preformed shape once again. It's held in place with some specially designed wire ties to prevent any water from getting in around the shaft cylinder itself. And with this piece in place, this will prevent any rain from getting inside of the actuator tube itself and preventing any costly service call. Now, to make the system complete and totally impervious to any water intrusion, we also have motor boot covers as well. They also have the vent on the top side, and all these vents on the top side, they are curved down, and if you can see real close, there's a small hole there to allow air to enter in through the system to prevent any condensation from occurring. The bottom vent is an excellent place for your cables to exit, to prevent also that by that way you aren't having to pierce another hole and allowing water to penetrate in through that hole. With these two units installed together, it will eliminate almost entirely any water intrusion into the system of the actuator. Call up any of the numbers listed on the screen throughout the program, or write the numbers down because these lines are busy during the program. And for future reference, also it's convenient to have that number listed. At twice the cost, these boots are worth it. Try one out. I think you'll like one. Thank you very much.
Here's the perfect take-it-along or enjoy-it-at-home personal TV you've been looking for. It's a KTV, the name you can watch, in a compact 5-inch color TV with video monitor. That's right, video monitor with separate audio and video output input. The KTV has 3-way power capabilities: household AC, 12-volt DC using your car or boat battery, or D batteries for ultra portability. It's very light, less than 9.5 pounds, has a quick start picture tube, automatic gain control, electronic digital tuning with slide rule turning dial, and video monitor switching capability. The KTV has everything you ever wanted in a personal TV and video monitor. The price is sensational, just $239. That's right, $239 for this color TV with video monitor and three-way power. For more information or to place your order, call now. The number is 800-826-KAUL. In Wisconsin, call 800-826-NOVA. Call right now. Our sales staff is standing by. Here's the cable trencher that you've always looked for but have never found until now. The little dropper has durability, quickness, maneuverability, and economy all rolled up in its compact three-wheel body. How does it rate with the competition? Let's watch. The little dropper starts out against a trencher that costs twice as much but delivers only a fraction of the dropper's capabilities. Note the cleanness of the operation, its maneuverability, almost effortless. It weaves around obstacles with a nimbleness that makes the competition look like it's hibernating. Mission accomplished. The little dropper heads for a new site while the competition is still slugging it out. The little dropper handles 90% of all your trenching work. It saves time because you can drive it from site to site. It's rugged, dependable, and simple to operate. The little dropper has an extra heavy-duty clutch and a rear-end differential. Flotation-type tires are easy on the lawn, and it can be unhooked for other uses such as pulling a trailer. Looks great, drives great, and works great. And best of all, it costs less than you'd ever believe. Its base price at under $4,000. That's right, under $4,000 for the little dropper.
A final reminder, and we'd like to have you do it, give us a call tonight if you're interested in any of the products that we sell at Caltronics, the systems and the electronics. We're very proud of our Luxor line, so give us a call about Luxor or any of the electronics or about our many different wonderful antennas. The sales staff is standing by, and the numbers are 800-826-CALL, K-A-U-L, if you're out there in the contiguous states. And in Wisconsin, it's 800-826-NOVA, N-O-V-A. For the Outlanders, it's 826-CALL, K-A-U-L. And the other number for Wisconsin, 800-826-NOVA, N-O-V-A. Until next week, have a good one.
Are you confused about satellite programming guides? Are you tired of monthly inaccurate guides that are big and bulky and about as much fun to use as a city phone book? How about tabloids with hard-to-read print, incomplete movie listings that are about as easy to use as a road map? Or newspaper guides with confusing grids that fall apart in your hands? There is an alternative. OnSet, the easy-to-read, easy-to-use weekly programming guide with more movies and sports. Best of all, OnSet is only $39. That's right, 52 issues for only $39. But don't take our word for it. We'll send you a free copy of OnSet, and you can judge for yourself. And if you're a dealer, ask about our dealer program. Make your customers happy and make money. Call OnSat now. Toll free 1-800-438-2020 or write OnSat, Box 2347, Shelby, North Carolina, 28150. OnSat, you've seen the rest. Now try the best.
That's all for this evening's Satellite Showtime, brought to you by our fine corporate sponsors, including Luxor North America and Caltronics Incorporated. We encourage you to be as informed about our industry as you possibly can. There are two other programs about the home satellite industry on the Birds, and they are Boresight, which comes every Thursday night at 9 o'clock, Satcom 4 Transponder 20, and that's at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can listen to FM America every night from 9 until 12 Eastern Time, and that's on Comstar D4, Transponder 20, Subcarrier 6.2. We encourage you to turn to FM America right after this show ends. On next week's Satellite Showtime, Mike Gustafson will tell you about satellite antenna power drives. Bob Cooper will have the second half of his segment with Konishi and Uniden, and our Shelburne Film segment will focus on setting the satellite dish on the mount. Until then, good night.
Both conventional UHF, VHF off-the-air systems, plus full-line satellite TV.
Why did you move into that area of satellite TV?
Well, satellite itself seems to be the emerging technology with regard to television.